we're going to talk about hip flexors. So many people tell me that they have a tight hip flexors, or they've been told that the back pain is because they have a tight hip flexors. Sometimes it applies for people who are, sit a bit more, or actually sometimes who are training with a bit of compensation. Their core is not as strong, and then they're compensating with hip flexors and they're having a bit of tightness. So we're gonna debunk why stretching with hip flexors doesn't work and why we need to strengthen it. So let's talk a little bit anatomy. So Sam's holding up a skeleton over there. So the hip flexors originate from your lower back. So there's a section called the lumbar spine, which is the last 5 bones of the spine. And so the hip flexor goes from the edge of the lumbar spine, go all the way to the front of your hip bones. So if you just have your hands here, that's where your hip bone is. And the hip flexors goes all the way across the front. So there's 2 parts of it, one attached to the spine and one attached to the pelvic bone area. Okay, so you can put down the skeleton now. So what we're gonna, I've seen a lot of people, have you seen this before as well? People are like, oh, my hip flexor is so tight, and they just stretch like that.
Yeah.
And then just...
It's not even a hip flexor, not even getting the hip flexors. Maybe some quad, but...
When we are talking about that anatomy there, the hip flexor, because it's not stretching at all, because your hips are not extended, you're actually flexing it rather than lengthening it. So can I get you on the both of those a bit high, so just be careful.
Front back.
Facing that way, I just want you to have one leg up and one knee down, like a half length. Sorry. There you go. There you go. Awesome. So we're gonna do a bad bend first. You're just gonna relax and lean forward all the way like that. Okay. So those of you who think they're stretching the hip flexors, yeah, let's swap legs so they can see. So those people think they're stretching the hip flexor here, but actually they're not. So going back to 90 degrees or so, what I'd like you to do if you are doing this at home, try and tuck your pelvis in, show where you feel a bit of that tension-y feeling down the front, and then you extend forwards. You might find you don't go as far as you do, but that is your hip flexor stretch. Okay. So now that you know where the hip flexor is, I'm going to tell you how to strengthen it so then you can release some of that tension. Are you able to lay on your back for me? So I had a pre-cut loop band that I've lost because it's with the skeleton. Oh, there we go. It's with Sam. So what I'd like you to do is have a band. It doesn't have to be a physio band. It can just be like a exercise band. And now you're going to lift your legs into a tabletop position. Okay, so from here, it's really important that you really think about tucking your tummy, pressing your belly downwards and tucking your pelvis, yes. Because straight away, we're adding a bit of tension to our core area. So if we were to strengthen the hip flexors, what I'd like you to do, we're going to work on this leg. You're going to bring that back towards your chest, work on the resistance, this keeping still, and then you're going to slide it back out. And the more resistance you use, the harder it is. So this exercise actually can be harder than it looks, which lots of people don't realize. So that's one of the ways that you can strengthen hip flexors. I mean, similarly, you can do it in standing, but I found people, sometimes it's easy to compensate with that rotation in standing. So if you've never done it before, I will start with lying down and really thinking about there's no space here, which is perfect. Awesome. So Sam, please stand up for me. The next drill that I quite like, because sometimes any of these kind of muscular tension, it's not all in your brain, but it does help if we do a full range of motion work to release some of that tension. So we're going to do this plinth way. We're going to tip it forward. Really just drag it over here. Awesome. So, can you put both of your shoes back on?
Yep.
And the poor skeleton is just laying on the floor. And the head is not even in the right way. So speaking of hip flexor, lots of people also tell me that they've got back pain because the hip flexors are tight. So these are really good drills to try and really open up your hip flexors so that it's not pulling as much down here, the side, the front of the hips here. I'm gonna see that I can put the skeleton down and we'll do it into a literature that which I absolutely love. So you're gonna lay on the floor on your back. As long as you can see the legs, don't worry about the sounds Sounds great. So you're going to lift one leg up in the air. Can you take both shoes, one shoe off? Doesn't matter which one. You can do it with a book as well, but we need that shoe.
Oh.
Shoes come back. Okay, now lift your right leg up to the air. You're going to play the shoes over here. That's why I said you can use the book too. So your challenge is, you're going to roll, Sam's going to roll onto the belly without dropping that shoe. Because what you need to do now, that hip flexors have to lengthen and then rotate. And then coming back now. Want to try one side?
Yeah, go on. Let's try it the other side.
You don't have a shoe on the other side, you don't mind?
That's fine.
Okay, cool. I need to move out of the way for you then. Yeah? I'll just move out of the way. Nice. Flex that hip more, flex that hip more, and then extend and rotate.
Nice.
One more going. But have a little play, but it's a really good way. Also, the hips feels a lot looser after this. There we go. Flex them. Flex, 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 flex.
Oh, no.
Good job. Good try. But yes, this is a really good way to test out hip flexors.